When I was just a kid, I was the typical young car enthusiast. My bedroom wall was just covered with posters of exotic supercars from the usual suspects, Lamborghini, Ferrari. However, McLaren has always held a very special place in my heart, so you can better believe that this car that's sitting right here next to me really speaks to my inner child. This is the all-new 2018 McLaren 720S, basically the replacement for the old 650S, and I'm out here again just outside of Portland, Oregon at Mount Hood with the rest of the members of the Automotive Video Association to test out our best performance cars and best performance SUVs. But I know a lot of you are probably asking, does this all-new McLaren 720S live up to my childhood dreams? That's what we're here to find out. So as with any car that wears the McLaren name on the front end, you really expect a certain level of design and style that will seriously grab your attention. And you can see with the all-new 720S, McLaren easily met that goal. This is a replacement for the old 650S, and it's part of the McLaren Super Series. I reviewed last year the Sport Series, which is the 570S. This is now the newest version of McLaren's Super Series sports car, Supercar. And you can see the front end definitely has that Predator-like look to it. You actually may think that this whole piece are the headlights, when actually the headlight is only right here, and then here's the running lights right there with the LED turn signals. It's actually a 17 LED system, but it's really hard to tell. There's actually a built-in little air intake right here that helps to cool the engine. As you guys know, this is a mid-engine car. This one that we're looking at is also the Gran Lusso, the luxury package trim, but it also has like an optional carbon fiber look to the front end. The entire body of this car is carbon fiber. You can see a carbon fiber lower fascia, carbon fiber around the headlights. And honestly, McLaren offers like over 20 colors on this car. Why on earth would you get it in silver? That just really blows my mind. But those of you who actually do plan to buy one of these, make sure you check out one of their brighter colors. But as you can see with any other supercar, low and wide is the theme. This car definitely has that look to it. And actually McLaren says when they designed this vehicle, they kind of wanted it to resemble a shark, something that, you know, has predatory qualities, and they definitely managed to get that down. You can see functional air vents are right here that are also made of carbon fiber. The hood is really short. The trunk is actually underneath there, because remember, this car is a mid-engined car. Now, compared to the previous generation, this is roughly the same size. At around 105-inch wheelbase, it's the same size as the old one, and about at 178.9 inches long, it's only about an inch and a half longer than the previous generation, only about 0.6 inches longer than the smaller 570S, but smaller is kind of a relative term. This is still a relatively small car by supercar standards. Now, my tester here has these optional forged lightweight wheels that are like $5,000 extra. They're 19s in the front, 20s in the back, staggered wheels, 245s in the front, 305s in the back. Compared to the old one, the wheels are about 10 millimeters wider at the front. Now, one thing you're probably going to notice, most mid-engine cars have like an air intake scoop on the side. McLaren did away with that on this new one because they've moved the air intake scoops to right here on the actual, just underneath the rear quarter window. The air kind of helps travel in, and it really like sucks in air here to cool the engine. There is a smaller one I'm seeing down here, but it's very well hidden. It makes this car look a lot longer versus the previous generation. It's the first McLaren to get that new styling language. Now, this is also basically a completely carbon fiber tub. McLaren calls it monocage 2, so it's very strong, it's very lightweight. Speaking of the weight, this thing weighs around 2,829 pounds, so it's the lightest car in the segment. Now at the back, you're going to see a lot of styling elements from the flagship P1, which is their hypercar, which isn't in production anymore, especially with the rear end. I love the way the exhaust tips are actually right here. I'll let you guys hear what that new 4-liter V8 sounds like really quick. 。 But as with any McLaren, very high revving, quick revving engine that sounds basically like an F1 car. This wing right here also serves as an air brake. Right now I have it in its raised setting. If you slam on the brakes relatively hard, it'll actually pop up and provide like up to 30% of additional downforce when you guys are braking. Down here you can see a lot more functional vents. The engine, of course, is going to live underneath there, which you cannot access, unfortunately. There's no trunk in the back area here. The only trunk you're gonna get is in the actual front. But overall, the design of this car is definitely going to be making it to a lot of walls of young car enthusiasts, and McLaren definitely was able to design a car that will stand out even in the super exotic supercar market. So with any supercar, I know you probably could spend hours just staring at the outside, but when you're finally ready to drive it, what's it like on the interior? Well, we'll go into the interior in just a second, but you can see here's the key fob for the vehicle. It does come standard with the push button start, smart entry. No remote start on this actual fob, but you can open up the trunk from here like everything else. It's a nice feeling key, it's nice and small. Now with McLarens, they have kind of these scissor doors. They call them dihedral doors because this portion here will actually open up as well. And to open them, you have to get your hand into this little area right here, and it's electronic. And it's hydraulically assisted. You can see it opens up. Now McLaren stressed that they made the opening here a little bit lower, a little bit larger, so you can get in it a little bit easier. This is a very low car, so if you guys don't like low cars, you're not gonna like that. But getting in this thing, you can see, okay, it's not bad. I have to say, I've gotten into worse cars. This sill here, they made it a little bit thinner. It's also nicely padded with nice leather and stuff. Now the doors, they're also very easy to close. Now when you want to close the doors, there's a handle right here, and you literally just kind of bring it down, and you just have to click it. It actually will soft close, and that soft close feature, of course, is optional. Now, once you get into the vehicle, put your foot on the brake, push this button here to fire up the engine. Wow. So once you settle into the interior, it's definitely a cozy cockpit that I find it to be surprisingly roomy. The seats have a good amount of adjustability. I have decent headroom. And this one being the Lusso luxury trim comes with basically extra leather on the ceiling, along the entire dashboard, along the seats, along the lower part of the dashboard. It's a very premium looking interior. McLaren says it's the most upscale cabin they've ever done in any of their production cars, so you really notice that. Now McLaren being basically a standalone company, they don't have a parent company like some other supercar brands do. The materials in here are pretty excellent. You can see the dash is all leather stitched. Leather stitch everywhere, down here, even on this area here. There's no glove box on this car, surprisingly. Which actually doesn't really surprise me, although I feel like they could have fit one here just for additional storage. It's all leather stitch above here. It's all leather stitched on the door panels. This one has the optional Bowers & Wilkins sound system, which sounds incredible in case you guys get tired of listening to the V8, but honestly, I left it off most of the times and was just listening to the engine of this car. Now, the steering wheel, you can see it's a power tilt telescoping, which is nice, offers a good amount of adjustability. The seat controls, McLaren frustratingly puts them down here. So if you want to adjust the seats, you can see here, you push these buttons here. The seats themselves, they're like maybe a 12-way power adjustment. They offer a good amount of adjustability, but man, it really takes some time to get used to. I do like the fact that there are two-person memory seats. You're gonna need that. They also they hug you really nicely. They have good bolstering, as you expect with a supercar. They're relatively comfortable, but I will say that on a longer trip, I drove this thing about an hour and a half. It's definitely a little bit on the firmer side, so I've felt a little bit more comfortable seats. Now the steering wheel, you can see it's got an optional full carbon fiber on the rim, on the paddle shifters, which are mounted to the wheel instead of the column. Not what I prefer. Definitely a nice looking steering wheel. The gauge display here, you can see it's an all LCD display. It looks like around a 12-inch display. This is definitely new compared to that 720 I drove. The drive mode actually the gauge display changes based on the drive mode. So you can see I put it into sport mode, and there's comfort mode. It changes the position of the tach or the gear indicator and the speedo. You go into a track mode here, and it actually makes the gauge display go away, and it shows this little teeny tiny portion here that shows the rev counters, your speed, and what gear you're in. McLaren does this because it basically helps to lessen the distractions when you're driving on the track. There's additional buttons here. If you don't like that, you can push a button right here. It brings the full screen back up, and then you can see it puts the tach right there at the top with a little bit more information to adjust things or to look at things. Now you can see at the center stack here, it's also very driver focused, which is what I expect for a supercar. This is your drive mode selector right here. Anytime you want to change the drive mode, you have to activate the active button. Basically, if I just do that and I start moving this around, it doesn't actually change anything. This has to be activated first before you can actually change the drive modes. You can see there's a comfort, sport, and touring for the handling, which is what H stands for, so the suspension and steering, and then P, the powertrain, that adjusts the engine and throttle response and the transmission programming. Really nice how McLaren kind of breaks that up. You can see this car also has auto start stop, which you can turn off. You can also open and deploy the spoiler if you guys would like. And then this infotainment system here, it's very Tesla-like in the orientation of the screen. It's McLaren's own infotainment system. You can see here's the home page. When you go to the vehicle, it's got phone, media, navigation, backup camera. You can see here, go to the camera. You can pull the camera here if you'd like, but if you put the vehicle into reverse, it actually puts the camera over here in the display for this LCD, which is a good idea. Although while I was turning the wheel, I found that the wheel will block the camera, so it's kind of a little bit stupid. It takes a little bit getting used to. But going back here to the navigation, you can see it's basically a McLaren navigation system. It kind of looks a little bit like a Garmin. It works okay. It's relatively quick in its responses. The graphics look decent. No Android Auto, no Apple CarPlay. I wasn't kind of expecting that, although it would be nice to have, especially at this price point. Overall, the touchscreen is pretty easy to use. Very logical buttons for your climate control here. Go there. If you push this climate control button here, you can see it does have 2-level heated seats. Only heated seats, no cooled seats. You have dual zone climate control, of course, which is nice, which is what it's expected. Overall, you're not going to be fiddling with this too much because this is a supercar. You want to drive it. Now you can see here, start-stop button is down here. You really have to push the brake hard if you want to turn the car on and off. Your transmission controller is here. There's no actual park for this car. Instead, when you're ready to park it, you put into neutral and then you activate the parking brake, which is electronic over here. It does have drive, reverse. There's also a manual mode where you can use the paddle shifters. And then this car also has launch control, which you can activate in track mode. Unfortunately, the launch control is deactivated right now, so I won't be able to show you guys that later on. But you can see here, overall, pretty good amount of storage. A little bit of a cup holder there, another cup holder here. Opening this up, you can see there's another storage area here with 2 USB ports, an aux port, and then a nice little shelf back here, which McLaren says this will hold 7.3 or 7.4 cubic feet of space. So if you add the 2 trunks up, that's a little over 12. Pretty good amount of space, although this is kind of small and you have to tie your cargo down if you're gonna actually put stuff there. But overall, the interior of this car, nice and luxurious, very unique, relatively spacious. Has a little bit of a learning curve, but really, you're probably more excited to see how this thing drives. So usually we get to under the hood part, and this is where I talk about the engine. Because this car is mid-engine, there's no engine underneath here. Instead, you're just gonna find around 5.3 cubic feet of space. And you can see the space itself, very deep. I was able to get my carry-on roller luggage and this backpack in this vehicle, and it was able to get it to shut. It's a really nicely finished cargo area. And in case you guys are wondering, there is a little emergency release here in case somebody is locked into the trunk of the McLaren Supercar, but surprisingly practical. There's also another storage area that I'll show you when we go into the interior portion, but this is a Supercar, so you probably are wondering, what's the engine like? Well, this is an all-new V8. It's about 40% new versus the old 3.8-liter motor in the 650S. It's now a 4-liter twin turbocharged double overhead cam 32-valve V8. Now, surprisingly, it only has port injection. They don't do direct injection on this car, and it's got, of course, the typical twin scroll turbochargers. Now, McLaren says this engine puts out 710 horsepower. Now, I know the name 720 implies that it has 720 horsepower. That's for metric horsepower. US horsepower is a little bit less. It puts out 558 foot-pounds of torque, so very, very impressive numbers, more than what you get from the Lamborghini Huracan and more than what you get from the Ferrari 488 as well. It all goes out through a 7-speed twin-clutch transmission with very quick shifts. We'll go into the test drive later on. And what McLaren is very proud of the fact is this car is the lightest in the segment. At 2,829 pounds empty, this is seriously lighter than most of the competition by 200 to 300 pounds. McLaren's are only rear-wheel drive. Now with the launch control, McLaren says this car will get to 60 in 2.8 seconds. It will reach a top speed of 212 miles per hour. So performance is getting even more crazy with this vehicle. I know you guys have been super excited to see. Let's get out on the road and see how it performs. So as you guys can imagine, driving a car that costs this much can be a little bit of a nerve-wracking experience. And McLaren's, just like that 570S I drove, are all hand-built. So there are definitely aspects of this car where I feel like it feels a little bit fragile at times. Like I'm almost going to upset the car if I drive it too aggressively. And you can see there's the start-stop. It's weird because the car shuts off, you think it's stalled, and then when it starts up, it's a little bit loud, so I just found myself kind of turning off the start-stop because I didn't really like it all that much. Now, getting out into the road in the 720, it doesn't take very long before you instantly notice just how serious this car is. It's a serious track car that you could supposedly still daily drive because McLaren, as you guys know with their proactive chassis control too, is very good. This car surprisingly has a supple ride quality that doesn't beat you up terribly. But as you drive the McLaren, you're basically noticing one thing, how incredibly low this car is. It's a seriously low car that will remind you of that constantly. The steering in this car also incredibly lightning quick, and it has no body lean, so you basically just drive this thing and there's no body lean whatsoever. But I know a lot of you are wondering, how does it actually accelerate? So as I said earlier, the launch control doesn't work on this car, unfortunately, so I'm going to put the suspension powertrain into its track mode here. Let's put this back up. I prefer that. And I'll try to brake torque it a little bit, see what it does. Oh my God! Holy shit! Man, that turbo lag's insane! The feeling I'm getting is like literally like my stomach is back there. Oh my God, this car's scary. This car requires some balls to drive it, but when you start pushing it, feel the handling of this thing. It just grips the road. Oh my God! And so the brakes on this car, they're good brakes. They're carbon ceramics, which are standard. Oh, God damn! Wow! Oh my God, this car is so... Wow, my palms are sweaty. My palms are so sweaty. Like, what a scary car. Now, 0 to 60 in 2.7 seconds, I believe it. And you know what? For a rear-wheel drive car, the way this thing puts down the power is incredible. I was expecting it to be more of a tail-happy car, and it's not. Let's go into the manual mode here. Oh, listen to that. Oh, the shifts are so quick. Now, this is McLaren's 7-speed dual-clutch transmission. I have to say, it's a great transmission. I don't know if it's as good as the Porsche PDK. I think what I noticed when I was driving this car at like regular speeds, the transmission did, get a little tripped up at times. God, what an incredible car. Now, going over this bumpier part of the car, the road here, whew, I'm gonna switch it over to just sport. It's definitely a bumpier feeling car, and you definitely feel the width of this car. Now, it's not as wide as things like the Aventador, of course, or even the Huracan, I believe, is a little wider than this car. But it's still a relatively easy car to drive. You just kind of fear because it's so low. You really need to be careful, with any kind of dips or bumps in the road. This car will scrape relatively easy. Now, thankfully, McLaren gives you that optional front-end suspension lift feature where it'll lift it up just ever so slightly at low speeds. It's like $2,500 extra. Highly recommended. Otherwise, you're going to be scraping the nose of your supercar constantly. But now, the one thing I didn't talk about earlier was the fuel economy. This thing's actually rated at 1522 on premium, of course. It's got like a 17-gallon gas tank. I'm sure most of you don't give a crap about the fuel economy, but in case you're wondering, it's a little bit better than what you're going to get in the Lamborghini Huracan with its naturally aspirated V8 or V10. Now, this car definitely doesn't turn really well on a dime. I wasn't expecting it to. And there's, you can see the backup camera gets blocked by the steering wheel, so that's kind of annoying. But I'm gonna actually put the car into comfort mode here. So this is now in its comfort suspension, comfort steering, comfort powertrain. And this is where you can see the steering gets nice and light. The exhaust tries to quiet down a little bit. And the ride quality tries to get a little bit softer. This car has really good ride quality for supercar standards, but of course it's no Buick. It's not going to be super comfortable or quiet. And speaking of quiet, it's not very quiet in here at all. With these sticky Pirelli tires on it, summer tires, there's plenty of road noise. I do wish that the engine was a little bit more vocal. It's got plenty of turbo blow-off whistle noise, which is lovely. It makes this car, realize you love turbocharged engines for that reason. I'm just really surprised with the turbo lag. I'm really also annoyed that this car's launch control system is shut off right now, because I really would like to try the launch control out and show you guys that, but it doesn't really need launch control to make me sweat from places that I usually don't sweat from, so this is seriously one incredible car. Now you can see here going over a few bumps. It does upset the chassis a little bit, but it feels incredibly stiff. It feels incredibly planted. And I want to say this car gives you confidence, but I really would need to take it out to a racetrack to kind of test out that theory, because I'm a little bit terrified of crashing this thing out here. Definitely don't want to be that guy that crashes the McLaren. But even in comfort, you can see I floored it there. It takes a second. But God, this thing, so absolutely incredible. All right, forget about the comfort mode. We're gonna go into track again. We're gonna brake torque it a tad. Oh my God! Wow! And the brakes, I think they're brake-by-wire because they feel a little strange. You have to really put your foot into it to get the brakes to actually do anything. But when you do, they bite incredibly hard. The steering in this car, because it's hydraulic, not electric, does provide a good amount of feedback. I just wish it was a little bit heavier. But wow, this car, the way it drives lives up to the way it looks on the outside. So if you guys have the balls to really test out the limits of this car, and I hope you do, if you guys have the money to afford something like this, please do take it to a track and see where the limits of this car is, because I'm hoping that I'll have the opportunity to do that at a later date. But just driving this thing out on the road, it's a supercar that you could theoretically daily drive. You'll just be kind of terrified of it getting scraped or getting damaged, and also people scratching it and whatnot, but that's kind of how it is with any supercar. Going back to the introduction of this video, I said earlier as a child, this was probably the car of choice that was on my bedroom wall. So never in a million years did I think now as an adult that I would be able to do this as my full-time job. And it constantly reminds me how incredibly blessed I am. But back to my original question, does the McLaren 720S satisfy my childhood dreams? Does the car live up to the McLaren name? Well, I drove the 570S last year. I definitely loved the car. You can definitely feel the extra power that this 4-liter twin turbo gives you. The V8, as you guys saw, crazy amounts of acceleration, ridiculous turbo lag, which I usually would complain about, but with a McLaren, I'm noticing that that's kind of the norm with the company. Lots of drama with the turbo lag versus some of the competition with the naturally aspirated engine, of course, that Lamborghini offers. The design will basically attract stares from everywhere you take the car, even in this very boring silver color. And really what it comes down to is if you guys can afford the payment on this car, the price, you're getting one of the most incredible supercars, one of the most rare cars on the road. But that begs the question, what does it actually cost to get a McLaren 720S? Well, this car went on sale about last year, and it starts at $285,000. I know, it's a stupid, crazy, ridiculous amounts of money. However, with over 710 horsepower, the McLaren definitely falls into an interesting category because it competes with things like the Lamborghini Huracan Performante, which is like $280,000, the Porsche 911 GT2 RS, which is $300,000, and then of course there's the Ferrari 488 GTB, which is like $250,000. So it's priced relatively well. It's an interesting tweener car because it's not as big as the Lamborghini Aventador, but it's not as small as the Lamborghini Huracan. So it's a good little tweener. Now this one, of course, is not just $285,000. From $11,000 for the luxury package, $5,000 for the sport exhaust, $5,000 for the wheels, the upgraded interior with the Bowers & Wilkins. This one stickers for $342,000, which is basically more than a lot of people's house here in America. So it's a stupid amount of money, but I have to say, if you can afford to drive something like this and drive it on an everyday basis, it's really, truly a car that will impress you day in and day out, and it'll also get the kind of attention that you probably demand when you guys are gonna drive a car like this. But I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on this 2018 McLaren 720S. If you're also looking to see those cars I'm testing, make sure you follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews. Like us on Facebook. And as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline AVA's YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video. Why? Why is it telling me the parking brake is applied?